Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum, where you're here to stay star curious on Stay Curious with me, Stargazer MarQ. So glad you're with us today. Got behind me the beautiful picture of Uranus, as we're going to talk about the only time we have seen the seventh planet in the solar system up close and personal. Uranus, the planet people love to snicker about, of course, but it's either pronounced Uranus or Uranus by astronomers. And this is a beautiful rendition of what it actually looks like. We're going to tell you some anomalies of Uranus, as it doesn't spin like a top like most of the planets do. Something knocked it over and it rolls around like a bowling ball in its orbit. But it was today in space history in 1986, which was 36 years ago, that Voyager 2 flew by Uranus and gave us our first up-close images and only up-close images of this very mysterious and unique planet. So stick with us here to stay curious on Star Curious with Backyard Astronomy, as we're going to show you, you can see Uranus with binoculars maybe from your own backyard. It's cloudy outside today, so we're going to sit down here, no stars to see in the clouds, so we're inside. And with Marty Winkle, my cameraman, co-producer, he's behind our Streamlabs technical facility here. Streamlabs, what am I clutching for, Marty? Name for Streamlab, in our Streamlabs studio, in our American Space Museum studio, just 10 miles away from Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Space Force. So I'm here. I got a nice sweatshirt on commemorating, Marty, our wonderful astronauts of the Columbia era there. One of my favorite T-shirts or sweatshirts. It is January 24th. And on this date in history, astronomers all over the world and amateur astronomers like me were just waiting to see the first images of this puzzling planet, one of the four gas giants, in the same size pretty much as Neptune. But so let's see here. Neptune is a lot further away. I wanted to thank everyone for watching. Before we get rolling here, Marty, thank you for all that you do. Jessica Galloway is our off-site Trekkie techie that's helped us get our Streamlabs up looking good. And we've got a nice little slideshow with you. We've got some guests here from around the area. Where's some of you from?
South Carolina.
South Carolina?
Mims.
Mims, all right. Up the county in Mims there. How many hundreds of times have you passed by us before you stopped in?
A few.
A few, yes, like everybody. You don't go to your local tourist attractions. That's for the tourists in there. We've had a lot of people in here today. We enjoy a group of people from Harvest Hosts that are RVers. Are any of you RVers? Okay. They're in and out of here. So what do y'all think of our American Space Museum?
It's important to have this.
A piece of heaven.
It's important to have this.
Oh, important to have this. Yes, thank you very much. For over 21 years, the American Space Museum has been the arm of the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation that has been preserving the birth of the American space age, right where it started. I love saying in the delivery room of America's space age you're sitting in right now, and that's Brevard County, Florida. And we're so blessed to have so many space workers like Marty. My co-producer has spent hours inside the lunar modules looking out those triangular windows as the lead electrical engineer for Grumman, sorting out all the switches and wires on those things before they left for the moon on the mighty Saturn V rocket. But something that left for way beyond the moon, it was this Voyager 2 spacecraft. We want to thank everybody first on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, and of course Facebook Live that are seeing the video of this. And we're transposing this to Google and Apple for an audio podcast. So let us know where you're listening from, how you enjoy the podcasts, and any suggestions you might have for a program that would help you stay curious. Marty, I looked, Jessica has been cataloging our Stay Curious programs. And we are about 485 programs. We are very close to 500 episodes, my friend. And let me get a little rocket fuel here to get get powered up here a little bit. So amazing. Started out of the pandemic in March 2020 to keep our nonprofit relevant so that people knew we weren't laying down. Our whole staff has been part of this, of bringing you this program, and something that we really didn't think would take off. We never anticipated it being like this. So we're glad that you enjoy it. Now we need you to have your friends like us, share us, follow us, or subscribe to us so we can get that YouTube up to the hours we need to monetize us. And we're about 800 people away from 10,000 on Facebook. So like us there. That'll help us out a lot. Well, just about 9 miles from here was the launch of this rocket, a Titan 3E with a Centaur rocket on top there to take the payload, a very neat looking robotic spacecraft, mostly antenna, because we needed that to receive the signals from Earth as they went Uranus to first Jupiter, Saturn, and then Voyager 1 launched after Voyager 2. Voyager 2 was launched on August 1977. A month later, they launched Voyager 1. Voyager 1 was just going to Jupiter and Saturn on a different trajectory. Voyager 2 was the only one going by Uranus and Neptune. And boy, are we glad they did, because we still haven't visited those bodies with another spacecraft since. However, the Hubble telescope comes close to what Voyager saw from 30,000 miles away with the primitive imagery of 36 years ago. Think about that. Here is the look at Jupiter, or Uranus, a artist rendering, as it is indeed rolling on its side like a bowling ball going down the alley. And it has a series of about 13 very dark rings around it that cannot be seen from Earth. Only when Uranus has passed in front of a star did they know that they were there, because the star's light was broken up by the rings as it passed through there. So artist rendering there. Marty, we've already got some comments from our...
Breaking news, Dragon supply capsule just splashed down. That's according to Dave Stang.
All right, Dave Stang, thank you in Michigan. The Dragon supply capsule that's been up there for about a month or so has splashed down. And that's great news with, of course, experiments and so forth from the International Space Station. Elon Musk does it again, a supply ship. I believe he's into the 20s now for that. So thank you, Dave Stang, for watching. Mark Usiak's probably watching us. Christopher Mick is in Wisconsin. Hello to Robert Law up there enjoying his evening cocktail in Scotland this evening. And Dean Salzwedel usually watches breakfast time in New Zealand. And hello, Melissa Pope. She's at the Space Coast Office of Tourism. Hope everybody there's crowded around your monitor to stay curious here about Uranus. And Christopher Mick, I mentioned, Travis Campbell, Sam Atker, Drew Lipman. Hi, Pam Shivik. Pam Shivik's an amateur astronomer, and Pam knows this, that because of the snickering about Uranus being Uranus, okay, but it is the god of the heavens. It's appropriately chosen as the god that oversaw all the skies. But Pam, I know you know this, that the International Astronomical Association, that names all the features in the solar system, is thinking of changing the name of Uranus, maybe to be a little more politically correct. And you know what they would call that, Marty? They're thinking of using the name Urectum instead of Uranus. Ta-da! Okay. I had you sucked in, Pam, didn't I? That's right. Okay, all right. Okay, we got the professor watching, Marty says. Very good. Good that Keith Sowell's on there. Keith enjoys our program, and we may get Keith on there one time. He's a professor of astronomy at one of the nearby colleges. So, well, we'll probably keep the name Uranus, or Uranus, as astronomers call it there. But this is a quite peculiar world. Of course, it was discovered by William Herschel in 1781. It's the first planet to have been discovered by humans. Of course, the other 5 planets were seen basically from early cavemen. And he thought it was a star at first, and then he saw it move. And I'm going to show you where I have made some sketches to see Uranus move. You can almost see it with the naked eye. It's a little over fifth magnitude, and sixth magnitude is the arbitrary number we use that you can see with the naked eye. But you got to be on top of the Carolina mountains or out in the western skies to really see it with your naked eye. However, people throughout history probably did see it. Did you have a comment, Marty?
Yeah, you said that was the first planet humans discovered.
Right.
The cavemen were humans.
Right. Cavemen were humans. The first one that was discovered by a human with a telescope.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we don't know who the first caveman was that noticed things were moving around there, but somebody did. In, of course, Mesopotamia and the Sumerians of that region of the world, that is Iran and Iraq, is considered the cradle of knowledge coming on there. But, we want to go back there. Uranus has got, it's got, I wanted to give the correct number. It's got 27 moons. None are larger than 1,000 miles. All right, and that'd be Titania in the upper right there. Miranda, Ariel, Umbriel, Oberon. Sound familiar? Puck. Does that sound familiar to anybody out there, those names? Shakespeare. Those are characters in Shakespeare's A Midsummer's Night Dream and The Tempest. In the International Astronomical Union that does name these objects, back when these were being discovered by astronomers in the 1800s, chose to adopt the moons with the Shakespeare theme. So here is Uranus in the sky tonight. We have talked about and had a Stay Curious, Star Curious about the Pleiades above my head there. Marty, why don't you point to the Pleiades? There's 7 little sisters. I don't, my hand's going to be cut off. There you are. And Aldebaran in the V shape of Taurus the Bull is right off my shoulder. That's easy to see in the sky, exactly, even from your own backyard and light polluted skies. And Uranus is kind of directly across from the Pleiades, up there in the upper right. You can't hardly, I got it just labeled there, the name of it there. Go a little further, there we are. It's the one on the bottom. All right, it looks bluish green in a telescope. It really does. I've seen it many times. You can just get a hint of its disk at about 200 power in an 8-inch telescope. So this is, you go out and find the Pleiades tonight, take your hand like this, spread it out from about your thumb to your fingers, 20 degrees, all right, and then go about another half of that, and Uranus is probably somewhere in there. Okay. I have actually charted it, some very crude notes out beside a telescope in June of 1990. From June 12th to June 19th, I was looking at Uranus in the constellation Sagittarius. This is in, of course, the Milky Way. Marty, point to where I say Uranus is the sketch. I didn't keep the orientation the same. It's at the bottom, the heaviest, the bottom one there, right directly down from Messier 22, which is a globular cluster. So there we go. It moved from there, all right, at about a little past 6 o'clock. There it was about 4 o'clock, okay, 2 days before, 5 days before. So I actually watched it move from about the 5 o'clock position to 7 o'clock underneath that on successive nights. I didn't make very scientific notes because I was just basically what's in my head. It definitely moved. It was greenish in color. It didn't move while I was watching it. It moved in a course of a week from there at about 4 o'clock. So I encourage you all to make notes. This is not scientific. That might kind of be embarrassing in a way, but it's really not to me. This is, I remember, this is up on top of Bays Mountain with a 13-inch telescope. And it's fun to remember those things. For me, 32 years ago, 4 years after we saw Uranus up close. Sorry, this is such a pixelated picture. I do pick out pictures that say they're large, and this look large enough. Sometimes they're not. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune were called the gas giants. Why? Because we're looking at gas around them. Their atmosphere is hundreds of thousands of miles thick in some cases. but they all, as gravity compresses things closer and closer to the center, things get compressed, they heat up, they get compacted, and we actually think Uranus and they all may have a similar core of metallic hydrogen. All right. And you've got hydrogen, helium, and methane gas are the three elements of all these worlds, okay? Of course, hydrogen, the most popular, prevalent element in our whole universe. And then helium is, hydrogen's conveyed to helium. And then the combination, you got water and methane gas and ammonia and ice and all kinds of things. So nitrogen throws in there to get you some ammonia. But this is the relative sizes of them. Okay, everything can fit inside a Jupiter too, by the way.
What do you mean, everything?
Marty says, what everything? Though this doesn't look like that because it's not three-dimensional. Okay, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune can fit inside of Jupiter. This is not exactly the scale. The Earth is up there. It is to scale, all right. But the volume is what you miss out on. So you can put, breaking them all down, you can put everything inside of Jupiter, all of our planets and moons. This is Uranus on the left and Neptune on the right, the farthest planet, if you don't call Pluto a planet, but I still do. They look very different from the Voyager pass. And this is Jupiter. Neptune was in 1989, 3 years later. The feature... Uranus is basically featureless to the cameras of Voyager because they didn't have infrared sensors and so forth on it like the Hubble telescope does. But we could see that Uranus was bluish green while Neptune was very blue. All right. And in fact, though Neptune is further away at 4 billion miles, Uranus is colder than Neptune at 360 degrees below zero at its cloud tops, where Neptune is about 30 degrees warmer, if you will, at minus 330. We don't know why this is. Uranus is 1.7 billion miles from the sun, and Neptune goes as far as 4 billion miles away, which means Neptune must have some internal heat coming out of it from some process. Selected moons of the solar system with the Earth to scale there. You see Uranus and Neptune and Pluto. Well, Uranus's moons are quite small, even its largest ones. Neptune's got giant Triton that's the size of our Earth's moon. Jupiter's the one that's got the gigantic moons. Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto are all worlds in their own right. Io at the top there has 200 active volcanoes going on it of sulfur. It's being pushed back and forth like a rubber ball by Jupiter's gravity. Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto are all frozen balls that have liquid water underneath them. There's a NASA probe going to Europa because Europa has more water underneath its ice than all the oceans of the Earth, because they go down to 300 miles deep, some of the Europa water that we know. And we know that from the Galileo spacecraft going nearby, making measurements scientifically. We don't see that water. It's inferred by the scientific measurements. This is a photograph from the Hubble telescope showing you the rings and activity going on in the cloud bands of Uranus. This is with some special spectroscopy and infrared imagery, and it's not one image. They combine the rings on a separate image with the globe, and there you see a couple planets, a couple moons around it. Like I said, Uranus orbits on its side. All planets are spinning on their top, but the Earth, remember, is knocked over 23.5 degrees from straight up and down. Mars is similarly knocked over about 24 degrees from straight up and down. What knocked us over? This is a great riddle we might never know, but there's suspected in the early forming of the planets 4 billion years ago that there's other larger objects in our solar system the size of Mars that hit Earth and knocked us over and ripped the moon out. And then this Mars object was flung out of our solar system. And yes, we have found planets in the universe close to Earth between stars that we think are just lone planets that maybe got ejected out of another solar system. So This is why, astronomy is so cool. The more we know about it, the less we understand. And here we don't understand why Uranus is rolling along like a bowling ball down the alley, and everybody else is spinning on their tippy toes like a ballerina going around the solar system. And to boot, Venus is going backwards. If all the planets from viewed up above are going counterclockwise, Venus is spinning clockwise, which means it may have been knocked over 180 degrees, not 90 degrees, like Uranus. So many things to keep us curious. It just boggles the mind, and more every day as we reach out to the unknown. And there we've got. Let me see. Do I have anything else, Marty? Nope. We're back to the start there. Beautiful image of Venus there superimposed on the Milky Way. It's so interesting to me to see my sketches taken in 1990, and Uranus has gone almost halfway around the sun since I took those sketches. It takes 84 years to go around. And like I said, if it's pointing its poles at the sun all the time, its day is actually 42 days of daylight and 42 years. 42 years of daylight and 42 years of darkness is the day on Uranus. A very strange world indeed. The atmosphere contains a lot of ice. We do know that. The moons aren't of interest to us to go anywhere. The one jumbled up moon that we showed you, Miranda, looks like it was just blown apart and then jumbled back together by gravity. So get outside, get your star chart here. I got mine handy. I've got it turned to the Pleiades there. I can kind of figure out where it is. I got my red flashlight, because your red flashlight does not have your eyes contract to a smaller pupil after they dilate out. I always tell you how important that is when you're in your backyard to let your eyes dilate a little bit. Block that neighbor's light that he never turns off, or that street light, by moving to a different place in your yard. You might not be able to see all the sky, but then you could go over to another place in the sky and look at that area of the sky as you enjoy some stargazing outside. I know it's cold for a lot of you across America, but guess what? It's not down in South America, in Australia, where we have a lot of friends that are stargazing. Ophelia's in Paris. I wonder how the weather is in Paris. Marty?
These things said it's 10 degrees in Macomb, Michigan.
Macomb, Michigan. I think it's Macomb, Michigan, or Macomb, Michigan. 10 degrees, huh? Well, better you than us, because people came into work today talking about scraping ice off the top of their roof at 4 or 3 or 4 in the morning. And it burns quickly here.
Hudson, Wisconsin. I'm sorry. Hudson, Wisconsin, 10 degrees.
Yeah, Hudson, Wisconsin, 10 degrees. Okay. Well, we're hoping for good weather this weekend because we have an important astronaut memorial to honor the 17 astronauts that lost their lives in Apollo 1, Challenger, and Columbia, of course. And it's a wonderful, patriotic, and touching remembrance that the city of Titusville and the American Space Museum have put on for many years. We will be broadcasting that live to you Saturday at 11 o'clock. But in the meantime, we're going to have another show with you tomorrow with some astronaut birthdays, talk about some space history, charge up with a little rocket fuel. Marty, anything else?
No.
All right. Well, as I get ready, Mondays is our Stargazer MarQ shows. Friday, we have Tales from the White Room with the one and only Triple T that put all those astronauts in their spaceships. And Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we're peppering in a lot of great interviews. We've got one Thursday with Jonathan Ward, who wrote the book Bringing Columbia Home, with Mike Lineback, the director of that fateful mission 19 years ago. So until then, on behalf of my whole staff here at the American Space Museum, we hope that you can book a tour here to come see us. If not, watch Stay Curious to bridge the space between us.